Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Find a Moment podcast, where we navigate the space between ideals and everyday life. We are your hosts, Gretchen Roberts and Jennifer Ford, and we look forward to finding a moment with you today.
Hey there, welcome back to Find a Moment. Gretchen and I are here. We are continuing on our open-ended series called Honest Parenting. We are enjoying this and are challenged by this, and we are hearing from you that it is helpful. So we're glad that you have chosen to find another moment. If this is your first episode with us in this series, we'd love for you to go back and start at the introduction. We laid some good groundwork and put out some good assumptions, and we've had disclaimers along the way and shared some funny anecdotes and some tearful regrets and just been really honest and vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that there is any more universal experience to humanity than parenting. One that is so full of just an ongoing lessons learned mindset. Like that's just the nature of it. It's very sanctifying, very fulfilling, very purposeful, but also it can just be hard. And I think part of our goal in moving through this series, especially even with the title of it being Honest Parenting, we just want to be honest about the fact that it is hard, honest about the fact that it does matter, honest about what it looks like to have relationships redeemed and restored, and just honest about the fact that we don't have all the answers. And so one of the things we've done the last couple of episodes is we have started with a disclaimer. I feel like that would be good, Gretchen, for you to state again, just in case people haven't heard it yet, if people are just jumping in. But before you give the disclaimer, I will go ahead and say that today our discussion is going to be centered around parenting the age range of 11 to 18. So let's hear that disclaimer one more time.
So just to be clear, we are not claiming to be the authorities on parenting and to have the one right way. We are not going to offer a formula or any quick fixes. And we also have no financial things to disclose. We have no endorsements. We have no sponsors. We have no affiliate links. We don't have any materials for you to purchase. So,
and we don't make any kind of money off of social media. Like we don't do TikTok lives or YouTube ads or anything like that.
So we are just two old friends having a conversation. Our hope through this series is that you will have the conversations with people in your real life. Because really, I mean, that is what I think helps sustain us through all of the seasons. Because we have known each other with children in all of these seasons, right? We have been friends when our children were we had children in birth to 5 and 5 to 10 and all of the years since. So I think having community, having other moms that you can be vulnerable with and share the hard things and encourage each other and trade off children to where you can have a little break and things, and just being in community is just such a gift and such a blessing for you as a mom, for your children. And so we just encourage you to be vulnerable yourself and invite other moms or parents into this journey with you, because having community is so important. And maybe you are fortunate enough to have family around where you have the aunts who are helping and your mom or grandma who is helping. And I mean, what a gift to have that multi-generational family support. So we just encourage you to lean into that and to have the honest conversations. I think there's so much around parenting. This is aside from the disclaimer, but I think there's so much around parenting that people think there is a right way, that there's so much shame and questioning and doubt, or saying how you do things that you feel like maybe that's wrong, and I don't want to shame another mom, or I don't want to feel shame myself. And so I think just really having those honest conversations with the people in your life, maybe it's your mom or the grandma of your children. Maybe it is a next door neighbor, and maybe it's a mom in your Bible study, or Maybe it's a mom that you go on walks with or go to the gym with or get coffee with, or, what, any of those relationships, just being willing to have kind of some vulnerable conversations and just say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. And what do you think about that? Mm-hmm. And definitely asking the moms who have kids who are adults to say, how did you handle this? Mm-hmm. And not to say that you need to do everything exactly the way they did, or that they didn't make mistakes. I'm sure that they will probably be the first to tell you they made mistakes. There is something about that hindsight. But just opening up the conversation, that is, I think, one of our main goals with this series.
Yeah. I think you touched on the shame part, like not wanting to bring up certain subjects because you don't want to shame somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I think that's like, if you're just now getting into this series and you haven't listened to the previous episodes yet, we mentioned spanking multiple times, and we do talk about that. And I think that's one of those things that is so deeply personal, and it can be motivated partly by this misunderstanding of Scripture and, misunderstanding these narratives within the Christian parenting sphere, thinking that we're supposed to do that when I'll just go ahead and say it again. It is not a biblical mandate to spank. The Scriptures in Proverbs talking about disciplining with the rod, those original translations are not talking about children. They're talking about men. They're talking about adults who know better. So, and again, we've talked about, one of the things I mentioned talking about that was, do we bring criminals out into the street for public beatings? No, we don't. Mm-hmm. Why? Because that's cruel and unusual. Mm-hmm. So we should not do that to our children. We should not use physical discipline to little bodies, little people whose little minds are still growing. That's just, we just cannot align with that. Nor does that align with the model that Jesus gave us as he loved and nurtured and discipled and trained. He was actually training young adults, right? And he still did not give them the rod. He gave them patience, and he gave them teaching, and he gave them reprimand at times and correction, but he did not harm their bodies. This is actually part 2 of, I'll say part 2. It's episode 5, but this is a continuation of our previous episode. We were going to do all the age groups in one episode, and we just got so into it and got so expansive and thorough in our conversation that we opted to split it in half. So this is now, our previous episode was birth to 10 years old. So now we're going to start at the 11 to 18 age range. I'll just kind of read through some of the topics that we've got to cover, and then we may kind of tangent off from there depending on where things lead. But so far we've got puberty, phone time, screen time, curfew and driving and independence, and then friendship difficulties, deciding their own faith journey, realizing that the world has a lot of pain when there's sort of this lifting of the veil that the rest of the world is not like home, or maybe it is similar to home depending on what the home experience is like, but there's a lot of pain and darkness in the world where their eyes kind of where they become aware. So Gretchen, you had mentioned this, your background as a pediatrician, you kind of enmesh a clinical perspective into these different age groups and kind of what's developmentally appropriate, what we can expect, what we should maybe normalize, as opposed to things that we've thought needed to be corrected or kind of worked out of our kids. So maybe we can just start with the puberty discussion.
Yes.
And even if you want to get into boys and girls, like things with that, like I feel like we could really expand. I don't know how much time we want to spend on that, but I'll just give you the mic on this one.
Yeah. So definitely the puberty stage can begin before 11, and most of the time it does. And statistics show that it is actually younger than in the past. So in girls, it can start even 8 or 9 years of age. Wow. So boys, it's going to be more like a 9 to 11. And usually what you'll see starting out is going to be kind of some emotional dysregulation, bring up that word again, and some volatility. And like I said, that can start anywhere from 8 to 11. And our mentor, Sally Clarkson, one of the stories I love that she has shared over the years is that one of her sons, who was very calm, very chill, introverted guy, he, I think, was 10 or 11, and he was unloading the dishwasher, and she said he was just slamming things and being, so angry. And he said, why does everybody have to eat so much and all these dirty dishes? And she said that was her indication that the hormones were revving up. And this child who previously was calm and very laid back was then having these eruptions. And so to meet those with understanding can be a challenge because it will catch you off guard. And even with having 5 and our 5th starting to have these moments, and my husband are like, oh, right. Okay, we remember. Even doing it, going through it many times, it can still catch you off guard of like, where is this coming from? And the thing that I like to remind moms and parents is, well, if you're a woman who has been in the perimenopause range yet, think about how you want people to respond to you when you are feeling those emotions. And I will definitely say going through menopause has given me a new respect for teens going through puberty, because it's easy, I think, as we are adults and having to learn to manage life and all the things, that we can forget like how volatile you feel and how out of control of your mind and body you can feel at times. And so I think going through that myself has really given me a new compassion and understanding and thinking of like, how do you want people to respond to you when you're struggling? And to not think that these emotions or these outbursts or things are the new norm for your child or this rebellious thing. There can be that component, but a lot of times it's just this wave of hormone and emotion that they need someone to walk through with them with compassion, with understanding, and with how to navigate it. And I think for a lot of children that are especially just starting to go through puberty, to let them know what you are feeling, as strange as it is normal. Because I do think there's an underlying thing with children of wondering, am I normal? And there's so much comparison. And I think they can really question their worth and their value. And, kids can just be cruel and call names, in kind of that group setting and be made fun of. And so I think letting your child know, like, this is normal. And even before you see those first signs of puberty, to talk with them about it. Like, you are going to go from being a boy to a man or from a girl to a woman, and your body is going to go through rapid changes. And you can even tell stories. Think about if you have a neighbor who had a baby, and you can say, do you remember how quickly her baby changed from like this little baby to now they're running around and playing? Like, look at how fast like their bodies grow and change, and that's what your body is going to do in these next few years. So really preparing them for the changes. Like, you may feel very moody, and you may feel sad, and you may feel angry, and what are some ways that you can cope with that, and what are some strategies that you can use if you are feeling angry. Then going through and talking honestly about body changes with them. And one of the things, and this may be kind of the medical background too, is that we have always used regular medical terms for body parts and all the different processes and things like that. And so I think being as honest as you can with all of the terminology, asking them if they have questions, answering questions. And if you as a parent, you may need to do a little refresher and some research on your own before going into these conversations so that you are prepared with kind of some information and to be able to answer the questions. And I think another great thing to say is if they have questions, you can say, and you don't know the answer, you can say, I am not really sure, but let's look into that together, and let's have another conversation where we dive into that, and I'll research that and find some answers for you. So I think letting them know that you are their advocate.
Using the advocate language and helping them understand, you're almost like their agent, like their advocate through this time. In a way, you're like kind of shielding them from misunderstanding what's happening.
Right.
And also making sure that you are their resource instead of them.
Yes.
Because they can find awful things.
Googling all the things.
Let that be. And letting them know too, if you have questions, let's find the answers. I promise I don't have all the answers, but let's go look for them together.
Right.
Because you can also find things that either aren't true or things that are going to be scary or things that can be really harmful.
Right. And I think one of the things that we, through all the seasons, told our kids, especially, when they were little, was that if you hear a word or hear a conversation and you don't know what that word means, don't repeat it, but come and ask me, and I will be honest. And I think as a parent, being honest with them, even if it's hard, you just have to, because that is how you build trust.
There's a book, it talks about children being either parent-oriented or peer-oriented. And for kids who are parent-oriented, the parent is going to be the source. In most scenarios, the parent is going to be the source of that guidance and leadership, and that they're also going to be the person that the child turns to. If a child is peer-oriented, the peers may be the ones who are informing, and I'm air quoting, educating your children about this season of life and what to expect. And there will be probably some inaccurate things and some things that are kind of made light of, and our girls tell us that there is just so much vulgarity in the way that teens communicate and relate to one another, just very casually. And we were in the car last night coming back from dinner, and one of the girls was telling a story and said, she shared something that another teen had said, and I said, "Oh my goodness." And she said, "Mom, y'all don't understand. Every teen talks like that, except us. We don't do that." I said, "Well, first of all, I hope not. And second of all, just because it's normalized doesn't mean it's appropriate or healthy." And so
and I think, being willing to have those conversations, and as much as possible to not act shocked too much, to be, especially with some of the questions you may get. And I think being willing to have the awkward conversations. I think we have to get over the feeling that this is awkward, and to think that, it's just we just need to have one birds and the bees conversation and move on. No, this is an ongoing conversation.
And letting them know that.
Yes.
This isn't like we're going to just have that weird, awkward, are we done yet talk, and then you move on. They need to know, because they're going to have different questions that come up. They're going to be exposed to things that, at different times.
And I think starting it in the younger years too, with just really honest conversations, can really help too.
Because they're going to be exposed younger.
Right. Yes.
Whether it's from peers, neighbor kids, school bus, books, online, whatever. The book that I was thinking of, it's called Hold On to Your Kids, Why Parents Need to Matter More Than Peers. It's by Gordon Neufeld and Gabor Mate, MD. And I listened to the audiobook, and I think there's a PDF component to it, I think.
We'll link that in the show notes for sure.
Yes, but that was very eye-opening. But, to have relationships with your children where they are relying on you more than their peers, that has to be started at a very young age. And not that, it's never too late, but that is something to be aware of, because wherever they are trusting, and sometimes it's just proximity, where are kids spending more of their time. So if your kids are in school all day, you have to be more intentional with the time when they are home.
Right.
Another thing that I experienced when especially one of our girls was going through puberty is she would have, and this was probably more in like the 10, 11, 9, 10, maybe 11 range. Probably before I realized initially that that's what was going on, she would just get really teary. And it would freak her out a little bit because she wouldn't really know why. But she was aware of the fact that there would be some kind of trigger, but her reaction didn't match the situation,
Right.
and she knew it, and it scared her. She'd say, I don't know why, maybe I'm just tired. And I would say, you know what? I think this is what's going on. And her understanding that, and that happened multiple times, but her understanding that helped her to not be so, because they're going to be aware sometimes that I don't know why this feels so big and heavy, but it does. And then when they don't have the answer to why, it can create some anxiety.
Yes,
and
for
so
sure.
being able to say, I think this might be what's going on, babe. You're probably really tired, and I think you've got hormonal stuff happening. You're okay. Like you're not freaking out. You're not, it's okay. It'll pass. Let's get a snack.
Yes. Yes.
Let's get something to eat and go hang out. Helping them to have an awareness so that when they start to observe something about themselves that they don't understand, they have a frame to put around it and say, oh, well, now it makes a little bit more sense.
And that they don't have to retreat and feel like something's wrong with me and I don't want to talk about it. So,
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Do we want to move into phone time and screen time?
Sure. In the 5 to 10-year-old range, it's not as common for children to maybe have their own phone or their own device. So I think once you hit kind of the puberty time, 11 to 18, if you have not been asked multiple times for their own device, you probably will be soon. I think, goodness, looking back, I would say wait as absolutely long as you can. Most of our children, we waited until they were 16 to give them a phone. That was mostly because they were driving and they would be by themselves, and so we wanted a way for them to be able to communicate with us. And one of them did do away sports earlier, and so he got a phone at 15. But I would definitely say wait as long as you can. It is okay if your child is the last one in a classroom, in a school, in a small group, on a sports team. If it's okay if they are the last one that doesn't have a phone. I think all of my children at some point were the last ones, the only ones who did not have a phone. And as painful as it may feel to them and to you to have to constantly be saying no, it is worth it. My adult children have said that they are thankful that they did not have them earlier, now that they are grown. One of my adult children, he says he is so thankful he was not an iPad kid. So it is so funny to have those conversations, and we'll talk later about parenting adult children. It is fun when they are adults to then hear their reflections on those different seasons and time. So that's just the phone in general. I would say wait as long as you can. And from my experience, and again, this is just from my family is going to be totally probably different than yours, but getting them to 16, there is something different I feel as they go from maybe 11 to 16. There's so much change that happens and so much security and identity that happens after 16 that I think the hardest years with the phone and with navigating the peer pressure and online bullying and social media and all of that, it is so intense, I think, from 11 to 16 because they are so insecure. They are still finding out kind of who they are and their friend groups and all the things. And so I think protecting them in those years from any devices is just so beneficial to their mental health. I think we're at a point now where the data wholeheartedly supports that. And after 16, I think it's still, I would wait until 18 probably if I could, but I think the 16 to 18, they have more self-awareness. They feel differently even about social media. Like mine did not have it before 16, and it's still very limited. There are certain social media things that I do not allow on their phones. Another thing is to have some type of parental monitoring. And I will say, I think, Jennifer, we have talked so much about this, and I've talked about it with so many other parents also. And it makes you want to throw the phone out the window. Seriously. Like, it is so maddening, because if you have Apple devices, Apple has screen time things, Apple has screen limit, and it doesn't work. It doesn't always work. They can get around things. So I can recommend the one that we use. The one I found that is the most helpful and the most consistent is called Custodio. Custodio, and it's a subscription service, but it is the only one that I have found that really lets you limit and restrict and to see all the information the most. And you have to install it on their phone and have it on your device. We also have a friend who is in IT, and he does a lot of computer things and knows all that world. And so he was talking about monitoring his teen's phone. So I was a little nervous to say, well, what do you use? Thinking, oh no, I might have to get a different one. But Custodio is what he used too. And so that made me feel a lot better that someone who is in IT is using this same one. But even then, there are things that... And there are apps, even within Custodio, that will not allow time limits. But you can, even within that, just disable all internet type thing. I mean, there's so many nuanced things you can do with that. So I think you have to have a protection. My husband was talking with some other dads about it. And, I mean, very responsible, great grown men. And they said, even I don't need unrestricted, unfiltered access. And so I think having the realization, even as adults, we don't need unrestricted, unlimited, unfiltered access to and I think there's something in our freedom-loving minds that maybe is like, I want to do what, I have the freedom to do what I want. But I think realizing that you need to put boundaries in your own life and restrictions in your own life is just a sign of maturity.
Understanding what's on the other side of the screen. It's not neutral. It's not waiting for you to decide and tell it what you want. It's already figuring out your demographic, your preferences. That's what an algorithm is. That's what it does. Yes. And so the girls will sometimes say to me, Mom, I'm not looking at whatever. Well, no. But I also know that all of the apps know that you're a teen girl. So what do you care about? You care about body image. You care about beauty. You care about style. And they're going to be selling things to you. They know. And then they're going to start sliding things in there about like this testimony of a girl who has anxiety or body image issues or eating disorders. And all of a sudden there's this like glamorization of unhealthy skinny, like these, it's starting to become, I mean, I've seen some of the research, the author of Anxious Generation, what's his name?
Jonathan Haidt.
Yes, some of what he shows, like if he creates a profile on, for example, Instagram and says he's a 14-year-old girl, what does it immediately start pumping your way? And it starts saying things like kind of normalizing mental health struggles, like almost trying to tell the account holder that maybe she does have mental health problems, and it's like it's kind of kind of tangling you up and maybe trying to convince teen girls that they do have body image issues, that it's like telling them that they have these problems. And then when they do that, then social media also becomes the answer to that. Oh, these are people that I can relate to. Oh, I've had I've had doubts about how I look in a certain outfit, or, wondering, comparing my body type to someone else. How do I make my face shape look different? Like, then it kind of becomes this resource where you never really get the answers that you're wanting, because it's just telling you that every little part of yourself that's unique and lovely is actually broken and needs changing. It's creating a customer out of you so that you continue to seek what it offers.
You are the product.
As an answer. Yeah, you become the product, and then it's advertising things to you. And one of the things our girls will say is, but it's fine. I'm not looking at anything crazy. No, but they know who you are, and it's not neutral, and it's not just passive. It is constantly calculating and configuring to feed you what it wants you to have so that you keep returning. And you have to think certain things about yourself and about the world so that you have a need to keep coming back. You have to be aware of that. That's how it's designed.
And it's the same for boys. Like, if you think that,
different subject, but same.
Yes, it's all the same thing. And the funny thing is, we have always told our kids, we'll be honest with you, we'll tell you the truth, all that. My children still, even my adult children, will send me things through Instagram and say, is this legitimate? And it'll be medical things of, claiming something or other. And so they are being fed all these things. And they're like, is this medically accurate? So I'm so thankful that they will ask me. But it just shows, everybody's, and we have seen it firsthand through our podcast series. Like, it is really, it's kind of comical at this point that every series we go through, both of us, our algorithm totally changes and we start seeing totally different things just on our podcast. It's just kind of comical, but your children don't see it as comical. To them, it's real life and it's their life. But even the body image thing with boys, like, it has gotten so much worse just from the time that my older boys were 16 to now where my younger boys are entering that age. Like, the chiseled jaw and the muscles and all the things, like, it's just awful. So I would push back giving them a phone as long as you can, until it really, you feel like it. For me, it became a safety thing of them driving on the roads and needing to be able to get in touch with me. And the interesting thing is, some people, like, will say, get a dumb phone or whatever. Well, we got a flip phone, but the parental control things do not work with flip phones. And so they basically, if it's connected to any kind of browser, they have unfiltered browser on a flip phone. And to find I could not, and maybe, you all, if you have recommendations, please message me, but I could not find a flip phone that would have cell service and texting that you could not have internet access on.
We used a Gab phone for that.
And it worked.
Gab is the brand, GABB. Okay. And that worked. Now, they can send and receive photos and videos, but it does not have internet access. But it does provide, like, tracking, like location tracking, GPS, and calling and texting. We started with a Gab watch and then went to, and that was for, like, being out around in the neighborhood. And they can make calls and texts through it. And then we moved up to the phone. And then we ended up with an iPhone because there were limitations with the phone. And once they start doing school things, a lot of the things, we've talked about this in another episode, I think. Technology is so interwoven into every part of life. We grocery shop, we bank, we make doctor's appointments, we check our lab work, we communicate with teachers. It's the same for the kids. Yeah. They get their notifications about assignments that are due. They check their emails from their coaches, or they'll have student ministry announcements through Instagram. It becomes this hub.
Yes.
And I think it's so convenient and yet such a shipwreck. Like,
yes.
I mean, everything is just going down with it because kids are not, they don't have the maturity and the governance. Even adults don't sometimes to make wise decisions. And you get one notification that pops up that's juicier than the assignment that you're supposed to be finishing. And then you just, all of a sudden you're an hour down the road, and you've lost that time and you don't get it back. It's very difficult. Even for adults, it is difficult.
Yes, and I think we have said it multiple times that we are so thankful that we did not have.
I sent you a meme about that yesterday.
So thankful that there is no
record
of my teen years. Like,
I would have been unemployed, unemployable for my entire life.
But that's the kind of thing that we talked about. It's like the risk taking, all this. Like, there are things that you need to be able to go through that aren't documented.
Right.
And then on another note that I will share also about being able to go through life without it being documented. As a parent, I have shared multiple things with you, Jennifer, about this concept called sharenting, which is about parents sharing their children online. And not just sharing them online, but it's kind of like their business and their product is marketing kind of their family. And maybe their family is endorsing products and different things, but they are documenting and sharing their children's lives as an influencer. So it's basically like the, mom influencers, but their children are kind of their product in a way. And it was something I was convicted on years ago, because I would share on my social media pictures of my children doing different things. And like I said, my oldest three are very introverted and private, and I could tell that they were getting to the point they were like, I don't want my picture on there, and they weren't on social media. They didn't have phones. I mean, this was 15 years ago even, so a lot has changed in that time. But I was really convicted through them and through prayer of just, that is their story to tell. Their life is their story to tell. Now, I think that can be taken to where you can say, I'm not saying you should never post your children on your social. I mean, not saying that at all. But I think to be mindful, especially if you are entering the influencer world, that is it your influence, or are you putting your children out there? There have even been new state laws, which I think I sent that article to you too, about, if you are an influencer parent and you are making money, that certain states have laws about the money that needs to be put aside into a trust for that child, because that child is actually earning that money. So it's just become so messy. But I think in general, especially now that, we're in that 11 to 18, talking about that range, those years are going to be hard years potentially for your children. And I think just being mindful that even in all of the successes, let that be their story to tell. And you tell the story as their parent, as much as you feel like you need to and want to, but just to realize that they can have that autonomy, that before you post a picture of them, maybe you ask them and say, are you okay if I tell about this award you received, or, and they may say no, and then we can choose to honor that. I think that shows them a healthy digital world, because I've heard so many stories of friends whose child had their picture taken at a sporting event or some kind of thing, and then it just goes all over and so you think, as their parent, right, you want to say, are you okay with this being put? You want to treat them the way you want others to treat them. And you don't want to post things against their judgment and their will, just like you wouldn't want a classmate to post a picture of them that they don't want posted. So it is a whole new world. And to go from the golden years that we talked about in the last episode to then these puberty teen years, it can be a lot, and it's a lot to navigate, and we don't have a lot of history of what is the best decision, and because so many of these things are just new challenges.
There's I do see some of the content on social media from like early 20s to mid 20s now, saying they're going back to analog, like analog living, and they're choosing more of an analog lifestyle for their young families. And I think I either shared it on my Instagram story or maybe I sent it to you. It's an unplugged cafe. So you're not allowed to have any kind of device out when you're at this coffee shop or cafe, and they're kind of popping up all over, probably in Europe more than here. I don't know. But everybody in there is either reading a book or they're writing a letter or they are enjoying coffee with a friend or knitting or crocheting or doing a puzzle. But the idea that we have to go to a designated public place,
right,
to feel the freedom to do that. Now, I'm not saying that people don't feel the freedom to do that at home, but maybe it's more about this environment that is sort of not just promoting and supporting it, but prioritizing it in a way that's very outward facing and saying that we find that this is valuable enough to make this part of our brand. Like this is part of our branding strategy. Like we know that you want this.
Right.
We know you want good coffee and yummy treats or whatever they sell, but also to know people want a place where that's just, they don't even have the option.
Right. So we've talked about puberty, introducing the phone, screen time. Do we want to dive into like curfew and driving and independence? And
I feel like each of these topics could really be their own standalone episode.
For sure.
Because there really is so much. Maybe one of the things that will happen is our algorithms are going to start dialing into this. So maybe some of the things that we don't say we'll be sharing on social media. So find us on Instagram because that's where we share and update.
Yes, Find a Moment Podcast on Instagram.
Yes. So with curfew and driving and independence, so in North Carolina, you have to, permitted drivers at 15 have to log 60 hours of driving time, supervised driving time. And even that, it's kind of like the menopause thing. Nobody tells you how hard it is to be in the passenger seat with your teen driver. And no one preps you. Like while our teens are in driver's ed, there needs to be a parent version of that, like a parent session helping you to understand like when to step in, how to know when to speak up and when to keep your mouth quiet.
Breathing techniques.
I'm going to just say it. Risk taking behind the wheel. Like that is not
next level.
I'm not able to do that. And we got to the point where I just had to say, husband, you're responsible for this because I cannot. I just cannot. My nerves.
We did too.
I am never the kind of person that says like, oh, my nerves can't take it or I just can't handle it. Like whenever it comes to things with parenting and stuff, I feel like I'm very tenacious. I maybe have some blind and ignorant confidence with some of these things. But with the driving thing, I realized I'm just not cut out for this. And it became a good way for dad and teen to have time together, to connect. There were times when it went really south. And then there were other times when he's just able to be so calm and cool when I'm thinking, pull over, put it in park, I'm getting out. Right. And it's not because somebody is incapable, it's because they're learning. And I feel just this heightened anxiety where and also just a lack of awareness of what's happening with other drivers. I feel like young drivers are so tunnel vision focused on what they are doing, staying in their lane. Where's their next turn? Are they in the right lane for that? Signal this, stop here, whatever. That they're not aware of what other people are doing.
And all the other distracted drivers. There needs to be like a learning to drive roads to where it's like a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Right.
Like there aren't,
it's like the carpool lane, like the fast lane on some of the highways in certain bigger cities where you can only ride, I don't know what it's called, like the ride share, whatever it is. But there's certain lanes only for people who are carpooling. Well, that's nice. Okay, how about some So we got those magnetic sticker things that go on we got like 4 of them on every side of the car, patient, student, driver. Because
people are not patient, right?
No.
If someone's going the speed limit.
No.
I may be guilty of that at times.
Or just, and whenever I see a driver that has the student driver or be patient with me things, I just stop and say a prayer. I'm like, they're learning.
Yes.
But like everybody needs to be mindful that the person that is beside them or in front of them or whatever, they might be a teen driver. My driving habits and awareness changed so much once I knew I had a teen on the road.
Right. It's so different, yes.
The driving with a young driver, like while they're getting their hours, is hard. And then when they go out on their own and they're driving and taking themselves to and from everywhere, figuring out like what's my comfort level, how long do I let you stay somewhere, do you have like a hard and fast curfew where you say no matter what you have to be home by this time? I tend to be more like what makes sense right now. Okay, you're going to a party that lasts till 11 and it's 25 minutes away and you have to take the interstate to get there. Am I okay with you driving home at 11 o'clock at night on the interstate alone or with your sister in the car? No, actually, I'm not. And I'm sorry that everybody else's kids get to leave the party at 11, but I can't go to bed until you are home safe. And other adults in the house might be able to. I'm not. So I just don't feel, I don't feel like saying, okay, well, it's over at 11, so you can leave at 11. I just can't.
Yeah. And I think that's where there can't be a formula because like you said, it's even the road you're driving on and there are so many variables in each family where they live that it has to be a conversation with your family and deciding kind of what the rules are and what the consequences will be for breaking those rules. And then kind of, like you said, your comfortability with the flexibility of a curfew. I remember my mom said, nothing good happens after 10 o'clock. And so that really stuck in my mind of like, there's a lot of wisdom in that. And I have kind of erred on the side of that. Like, why do you need to be out so late? But then there are times that they are working on a project at a friend's house that's 2 or 3 miles down the road. And so maybe I'm more lenient then when you're driving home from that. So there are just so many variables that I think you want your teen to be developing autonomy and independence, but you want to have boundaries. And so that's why there have to be so many conversations.
We had, I think one of the lessons that we learned with the curfew thing is instead of saying you have to be home by this time, it's you have to leave by this time. And that made a lot more sense. And it also meant that they weren't pushing things to the last minute to leave, trying to squeeze out as much fun as they could while they're still at the party or wherever they are, at the risk of maybe not driving as safely as they should on the way home because they're trying to beat the clock. So instead, I say, leave by 10 o'clock.
That's great.
And then I'm watching Life 360 like a crazy person because I want to make sure they get home safe. The other thing I did when there was a party that both of our girls were invited to that ended at 11 down the interstate, I said, you can either leave at 10 or I can take you and pick you up at 11. Either way, I'm inconvenienced by having to like participate in some way, whether I'm at home watching or whether I'm like actually driving. But they didn't want me to come pick them up.
Right.
They didn't want mom to be dropping off and picking up. So I just said, like, you can choose. I'm okay with whatever you choose. And they chose to drive and leave at 10. Unfortunately, they didn't leave at 10. So that created some other, we had to keep talking after that. But, also, how long does it take to say goodbye? Like those.
If you're in the South, it takes a long time.
It's a lot of. It's like as you get closer to the car, there's like more things that you talk about. I guess like the Southern goodbye. It's like when they open up Waze, like teaching your kid that when they start driving themselves. Another thing we had to teach was Waze is the navigation app that we use. Whatever nav app they use, that's fine. But teaching them that whatever time it says, if they leave by this time, they get there by that time. That's not the time that they go downstairs and get their shoes and grab their bag and fix their drink and then go in the garage. Like that's the time they're rolling out of the driveway. And the time that it says you'll get there by is not the time that you'll walk into your class. That's the time that you pull into the gate at the parking deck. So adding at least 15 minutes to your leave time. Like these are just practical things that I didn't know I had to teach, but she's pulling up the navigation going, well, look, I've got plenty of time. And I'm like, no, that's not, it's going to take you time to swirl yourself up the parking deck and find a space and then put your lip gloss on and walk down the stairs, and like all of those types of practical things that I'm not there for. Giving so much grace to them because they're figuring this stuff out.
Right.
Don't give them an opportunity to feel shame or embarrassment. Like, just support them.
Yes.
And let them know. I lose my car on the parking deck now, and I'm almost 49 years old.
Right.
It's okay.
Yes.
What were some of the big driving lessons for you guys?
Whew. I think a lot of it was speed. We have, some that like to
Heavy
go
feet.
faster. Yeah. And then navigating in North Carolina, you have for 6 months after you get your license, you have to be off the roads by 9 p.m. So they call it getting your after nines when you've had your license for 6 months. And navigating those 6 months of them having to be home by 9, so many school functions and church functions and, even things that are good that, they're volunteering at a service at church, and so giving them the option of, do you want to leave your car at church and I can pick you up and bring you home, and then I take you back to get it the next day on your way to school? So realizing that parenting is not convenient. There is nothing about it that is efficient. And so it really takes so much selflessness and sacrifice and grace and forbearance as a parent, I think, getting through that. But I like how you said, Jennifer, giving them the choice of, do you want to leave at 10 or I can get you at 11? I think anytime you can give choices that you as the parent are great with either option, it's going to give them that sense of autonomy. And I think it makes for less struggles.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it gives them the opportunity to see, I'm not trying to keep you from having fun.
Right.
I'm not trying to rob you. But I've also said multiple times, this is new for me too. I've only been parenting a teen driver for a year and a half now or whatever. That's a story from a couple episodes ago. I've only been doing this mom thing for however many long years. With those boundaries though, I think it communicates your heart behind it. Like, I'm willing to stay up maybe even a couple hours later, an hour to an hour and a half later, so that you can stay and enjoy the fullness of the whole party.
Right.
But I'm willing to inconvenience myself by getting out of bed and going, driving and all of that, driving an hour round trip so that you can enjoy yourself. But I'm willing to do that because I care about you, and I'm not willing to take the extra risk of you being out on the interstate that much later.
Right.
So I think that also, I think, communicates value to them. I value you enough. I care about you having fun. I'm not trying to embarrass you and make you leave an hour before everybody else. So finding ways to kind of the compromise, the negotiating, but letting your boundary be, like, letting the choices be to where either one is good for them, but one of them is, like, you're still meeting your needs.
Right.
You're meeting your needs and their needs. I don't know if I said that very concisely.
No, I think that's good.
One other thing I'll say about the driving thing, I have heard of some families where they will they'll make like a driving contract and it'll say, like, I promise not to, like, I will always keep my phone in the glove box, whatever those parameters are. We immediately, when Amelia started driving, we got a phone charger because we don't want the phone to ever be dead while she's somewhere out, and a phone mount, like, for the dash, because she uses navigation everywhere. And I want her to use navigation. Yeah. Also figuring out what your comfort level is with them listening to music while they're driving. Is that okay? Is it not okay? Are you going to be able to regulate that when you're not in the car with them? But I will say Life 360 has been really useful for us because it shows real time where everybody is. It shows, like, whether they are walking or biking or driving. I think it even shows a little boat if they're in a boat.
Oh, cute.
It'll show their speed, and then it will give you a report on whether it was a safe drive or not. Like, were there any episodes, like, were there any events of hard braking, rapid acceleration, and then also phone usage. It records when they use their phone, and then you can do playbacks of drives that show how fast they were going all along the route from start to finish. They know that I can see that, so that's some good accountability.
So do we want to dive into friendship difficulties?
Sure. Boy, we've felt this one.
Yes.
I think there's kind of an overlap in what our girls would say is the source of some friendship difficulties. I don't know, I guess how we define that. Some of the reason why they would say they have felt really excluded is because of our device limitations, not being able to be on certain apps, and also delaying getting the phones,
Yes.
and feeling like that kind of has isolated them, or using access to texting as a consequence, which also leads to isolation. And we had to really figure some things out with that, and where we ended up with one of our girls who was getting a lot of consequences for a long time. First of all, we learned consequences don't work. Second of all, we learned not with that one. And we also learned the type of consequences that we were using, like cutting off the phone. That was creating isolation that was unhealthy. And we just had to really figure out, like, what's her currency?
Right.
And motivate her in a positive direction instead of just stripping things away. And that's not to say that there's not a time for that, because
Right.
I even used that yesterday for a brief time. But I think a lot of that is knowing your kid. But for us, there were complications to friendships because there were missed opportunities, lack of response, things like that came from us using that as an ongoing consequence. We just had to take things in a different direction because it wasn't helping.
Right.
We would have seen that it was helping if we didn't have to keep using it, right? Yeah. So Gretchen, what I was just sharing was kind of like, I guess, bridging from the phone conversation into friendship difficulties. Friendship stuff can also be kind of on its own, just social things and growing together with friends and stuff like that. What about you guys?
Very similar as far as like consequence of phone and the isolation and things. And I think you have to decide as parents. I mean, there are just a lot of hard decisions to make. And, you have to decide if your teen has a phone, what apps you're going to allow. And one, for example, in our home was all the kids are communicating on Snapchat. That's where they all have messages. And that was just a hard no for us at that time. And so you have to make those decisions. And maybe for your family, it's not a hard no. And maybe that, is okay with you. Like, you have to decide. And then, there are things that then you go back and you say, we've thought about this and we will allow this, or and so to not beat yourself up, to just constantly be having conversations. It is so much more to navigate than just, oh, this is your curfew, be home by this time, with the technological world that they are living in. One of the biggest things that has stuck with me is Sarah Clarkson talks about her teen years. And one of the things she said when she was a teenager is that it was a very lonely time, and that her mom affirmed that it was okay that it was lonely. And I think having that advocate mindset with your teen, having that compassion with them, and having those conversations is so important. And for them to not feel like there is something wrong with them if they're lonely. And I think your teen can have all of the apps in the world to communicate and still can feel lonely. And so don't feel like if you are saying no to apps that you're going to make them more lonely, because the data shows that the kids with all the things are some of the loneliest kids. So it's just a time that they go through seasons of loneliness. And so letting them know that that's normal, that it's not that they're not a good friend. It's not that they are not a valuable person. This is a season of change and growth, and it is normal to feel lonely. And how can I help you in your loneliness? And one of the things, even when we were talking before about phone usage, is just even having things like game nights at your house where you get out a bunch of card games and board games and I really feel like games are making a comeback, even in the 20-year-old and 30-year-old groups. And so, if you can cultivate that atmosphere of community and to help those seasons of loneliness, and maybe they're an introvert and they don't want a bunch of people over, then, is there a friend that we can go to have a coffee date together or go to a movie together? I think realizing and accepting it's okay for them to feel lonely, and that you can help navigate that with them.
And model healthy friendship and be a friend to them. And that's something that we have talked about in the series too, is being the friend of your child does not undermine your authority. It actually enhances it. It enhances your position because it shows that you see them as more than just your kid who you're bossing around. Right. You see them as a person who has feelings and relational needs and confusing things, and teaching your teens what friendship looks like by you being a friend is going to serve you not just now, but in the future years when they're not under your roof anymore.
So true.
I think another element of difficulty with friendships that I've seen with our girls is when your kids have high standards for friends, they can be disappointed a lot. And that doesn't mean that they're like little adults. It just means they don't want to play. Our girls don't want to play games. They don't want drama. They don't want gossip. And that's made it really hard. And they also are aware that when they are spending time with friends who do that, it makes them vulnerable because they realize that whatever they share, if those other friends are participating in gossip and all of that kind of stuff, whatever they share is also fair game to be spread around. So they are seeing, I can't trust this friend with my personal things. Like I can't confide in them if they're telling me what someone else has confided in them as well. So then they feel like, well, who can I trust? They end up having these like really guarded relationships, which I don't think is bad because it's helping them to realize I can't just kind of vomit my heart
be this
to everybody who will listen to me talk. And one of our girls has had to really learn that the hard way. She tends to be more open and just expose everything going on in her heart and her mind. And she's learned the hard way that not everybody can handle that with privacy and care. And once you have lost your privacy, and this is part of the social media conversation too, I think kids today see like the number of followers and the number of shares and all of that. They see visibility and fame and they mistake it for value, not understanding that privacy has value.
Yes.
And once you put yourself out there and once you're exposed, it's very hard to reclaim that. And I've tried to really help them see like your privacy is a precious commodity and most people are just giving it away. Your employer, your future employers, your future partner, spouse, whatever, anybody that's going to have anything to do with you that's important, they're going to look you up online first. And what they find may be something that you've put out there, it may be something that somebody else has put out there. All the more reason for you to mind yourself and your actions and your choices, and don't let yourself be compromised. But being particular with friendships has created some loneliness and some isolation and disappointment. It is so hard for them to find a friend, and not that they're looking for perfect friends, because they aren't perfect friends, but to realize just how rare it is.
Right. And
I've had to tell them as well, I spent a lot of years lonely. I pretty much during my growing up years only ever had one really close friend at a time. I was always on the periphery of the friend groups, and I longed to be included. But then I realized they're all gossiping about each other when the others aren't around. That I don't want to be part of that just so that I'm not lonely. Like that's still lonely, because then I can't really be authentic and share. Because I can't trust that what I'm sharing is going to be protected.
Right.
Nothing is private. It's all just entertainment to them. You're just giving them one more thing to pass around and to not value, to not prize. It becomes, it's just entertainment.
Yes.
So I think that has created a lot of conflict. And then also I've got one of our girls is really comfortable having conversations like, hey, when you said this, I really, whatever. And then maybe you didn't mean it this way, but this is how it really came across. And I just wanted to tell you, like, that hurt my feelings. One is very comfortable doing that. The other one would be mortified and would never. And part of that is she doesn't want to lose she thinks that would put the relationship at risk. And she doesn't understand that actually sometimes binds a relationship more tightly. So yeah, it's
so much
personality
to navigate,
too.
right? And boys and girls are so different in this area. And it's interesting. My boys, I think some of my boys can spend time with a friend all day. And then when we're talking about their time together, like there wasn't a whole lot of conversation. But one of my sons was making homemade wooden chessboards with his friend, and so they're cutting wood and sanding wood and putting it pieces together and then carving chess pieces. And so I think from the little bit, with boys versus girls, boys seem to be very like activity driven, maybe they're surfing together or fishing together or working out together and things. And I do think they still value relationship. It's just, it looks different. But I have seen my boys navigate some friendship difficulties and have that same, like you were talking about one of yours who can go to a friend and say, hey, this really hurt my feelings. And seeing them navigate that, I just like, yes, I'm so thankful that, they can advocate for themselves and like calmly talk to a friend about something that hurt them and try to work it out. I mean, I think as parents, you're kind of modeling those relationship things and navigating that. And you so want them to be able to advocate for themselves, to communicate clearly, to establish boundaries and have those discussions. Friendship difficulties and those kind of relationships kind of goes hand in hand with them deciding and kind of figuring out faith on their own too. I mean, I feel like it's all happening in that same season. What thoughts do you have, Jennifer, on like allowing those teens and kind of facilitating their faith journey and making it their own? What does that look like in your experience?
For us, our girls are very different even with their faith. They were both raised in the same home. I've been a worship leader at our church. They've seen me do that as my ministry at our home church for their entire lives. And yet, and they've been homeschooled and with a Christian worldview, and so much of their curriculum and all of that is centered around Christian foundations. One has chosen a very different way of approaching faith from the other. And part of that is, and they both experience some similar things in some ways, but then their journeys have been very different. One of them has had a lot of difficulties that are just hard to explain and hard to understand, but have displayed a tremendous capacity in her to persevere and overcome, and building this strength that has required her to work 10 times harder than her peers to succeed. And even then, she has demonstrated so much aptitude and skill in spite of those challenges. But I would say probably the main thing that has caused one of our girls to choose not to trust the Lord is the death of 3 different mothers in our community within 9 months. These were all women with children, some of them very young. And the first one who passed away was a really close friend of mine named Kristen. And she had lung cancer and she was not diagnosed appropriately very early on. And by the time she was diagnosed, it was stage 4. And I was with her in the hospital when she was diagnosed. And it was she has 4 young children. It was absolutely devastating. And we watched her go through treatment and just get more and more frail. And eventually we knew that it was not going to, things just weren't going to turn around. That was not a part of motherhood that I ever knew to anticipate. To me, like dealing with death with our children, I thought we were going to be burying pets.
Right.
I kind of had kind of thought like that would maybe be the extent of it while they were young, for their first like real loss to be somebody that just loved them. And cared for them and was such a close friend of mine. And then it happened to another mom and then another mom. The second one was the woman who started the acting group that our girls first did theater with, named Rachel. That was very quick from diagnosis to funeral. I mean, it was like 2 months at the most, something like that. It was shocking, especially when everybody is still so raw from Kristen's passing, because they were both in the homeschool community, a lot of overlapping connections there. And then one more, a mom who started a dance studio here that our girls took dance at when they were really little. So all of them in the homeschool community, moms, kids, like just very shocking and devastating, and makes you really just question, how is God good here? And then you hear people say, oh, well, it's God's plans. God's going to work it out for good. You tell that to a teen, it's very hard. Like you can't change their mind. You have to just sit with them in it. And what we've decided, and our teen who just said, you know what, I don't think I can trust God anymore. She'd had some hard experiences at church, at youth group, with people not being very kind. And that turned her off as well. Peers not being very kind. And also even with one of the leaders, her small group leader, was just not very kind. She was a college student and just kind of harsh. And I even witnessed it myself. Otherwise, I maybe wouldn't have believed it. But I just felt very disappointed in not even God, but like the way that the church represented itself, her impression. And we did not preface our interfacing with church as the people at church are not God. God is good and kind and loving in all things and at all times. The people of God, like like the people that work and serve and attend, like those are not to be confused. And we didn't know that we needed to explain that. We kind of naively went into the student ministries experience hoping for the best, but also knowing our daughter's personality. We had hesitation, and it was challenging. It was also during COVID, which makes everything harder, right? Makes everything harder. Ugh. So you take a shy introvert and COVID and just an environment that isn't really a great match for the personality. It just was not a good experience. And she decided she didn't want to come to church with us anymore. And we kind of went back and forth, like my husband and I, do we allow that? Do we honor that? Do we let her decide? And we even talked to some families, like kind of early on in that happening, where we let her stay home. Some families who say, well, where is she? And we'd say, she's at home. She's decided, she's not really pursuing faith right now, and she just needs some space away from church. And the reaction we always got was, oh, if they were at our house, they'd be here. They wouldn't get a choice. And I thought, okay, my child is a person. My parents forcing me to go to church when I was a teen did not help. I was just so rebellious in those years. It did not help me. It would have been better if somebody had said, you know what, I get it. I understand. Faith is hard and it's very personal. And I trust that your faith journey and your story and your testimony are cared for so much infinitely more by God himself than what I want for you and for your faith. That's just kind of where we had to leave it with her. We've had more conversations, and I think that was beneficial. Like, she's been very grateful that we've allowed her that space. And then the other child is very just diligent. She's in scripture, in the word, and she prays every day, and she loves the Lord with her whole heart. And she uses that as as her anchor and her compass for everything. Not perfectly, but that is her goal. And to have two kids that come from the same home, and that child went through the same grieving as the other one with the moms who passed away. And she has been honest about her questioning God's goodness. She's just processed it and kind of metabolized it in a different way.
Yes.
So I think realizing that our children's faith journey, that is uniquely theirs. And I think sometimes this is maybe like part of the spanking conversation and the faith journey. We're afraid of how the rest of the world will perceive us, particularly our church community, how they will perceive us as believers if our kids misbehave, if our kids are picky, if our kids choose not to come to church. Oh no, what does that say about me as a Christian parent? You have to let that go. You just have to let that go and understand this is just as much about you being sanctified and you releasing your child to the Lord and understanding that he is after them so much harder and faster than you ever could be. And not worrying about how other believers will judge you.
Reminds me of the verse, I think it's in Colossians, where it says, not he who plants or he who waters, but God causes the growth. And so I think we, a lot of times as parents, can feel like we're their Holy Spirit. Like,
Right.
we are the one who is to convict them. No, we just plant seeds. We live our life of faith. We model for them, and we try to disciple them as Jesus did his disciples. And then we trust that it's there and that God is working in them, and it's not us that bring about conviction. It's not us that bring about sanctification. And I think the older my children get, the more I realize, like, I'm just on this journey with them. God is working in all of our lives, and whether our children acknowledge it or not, he is. And whether they receive it or not, he is. And I think we can just be diligent as parents to pray for them and communicate with them, and to let them know where our hope is found, and to let them have the process. I mean, you reference your teenage years. My teenage years were tumultuous. My 20s, the early part of my 20s, were very rebellious and tumultuous. And, you know, I often say, like, if God could rescue me, then he can rescue anybody. And if God can turn anybody's, I mean, if he can turn my life around, he can turn anybody's life around, you know. So I think it is a very shallow view of God for us to think that so much is under our control. And that if they question, if they doubt, then we have not done our job.
Right.
Well, absolutely not. You know, your job is to plant the seeds, to pull the weeds, to water the flowers, and God causes the growth. And God is going to use those difficult times as part of their story that you can't even foresee.
Amen.
Kind of getting over ourselves, right? And letting God do the work. And it's not a reflection of your faith and of your parenting. And I think to be in community with other parents, I mean, there's just a level of humility that you get to, either from circumstances or just from life itself. But
we kind of have this distorted way of thinking that it's all up to us, and it's not. Because we have so much responsibility with them when they're young, and that responsibility, like what that entails and involves and kind of what's within the scope of that really shifts so much as they age. And the goal is to be hands-off, but still very relational, like less hands-on from a very early age. Like as they grow, we're becoming less and less hands-on and more relational. So do I have a fear that our girls won't know and love the Lord? Like my flesh does, but my spirit doesn't. My spirit says, I'm just going to trust that God's going to do his good work, just like he redeemed my teens and my 20s. The same thing. I'm so grateful that there's not a digital record of those, of that decade of my life from like 14 to 24.
Whew,
I cannot imagine, but to know that is part of my story, and bit by bit, I'm choosing to share that with the girls as they age and as it becomes appropriate. Bit by bit, I see how that we can forget that we're continually building into the future where we're not hands-on anymore. Like we're building into that through the way that we see them as people. We cannot allow ourselves to be tethered to that fear and like this deception of it's all up to me, and if I don't do it, nobody will. Well, just a moment.
right.
Just a moment. There's a Heavenly Father who's intervening and interceding and moving in and around them in ways that we can't see. I don't know.
And we're building into a future that we may not see at all.
Absolutely.
When I love, like at church, when we'll see like a 70-year-old be baptized, you know, and you think, wow, all that God has done in that person's life. And so that person's mom is probably not, you know, like their mom probably didn't see that come to fruition or whatever the circumstance, you know. So I think, and it's the same like with grandchildren and nieces and nephews and things like, and even younger people that we are discipling and you know, volunteering with the children at church. You know, we are pouring into people that you very well may not see the fruit of that, and you are building into something. So you have to get over yourself because you're pouring into something that, you're planting a garden that you will never harvest.
That reminds me of what I read years ago during some of our homeschool stuff. The architects and designers of some of these massive cathedrals in Europe, they took over 100 years to be completed. The architects and designers and artists and craftsmen never got to see the finished work.
Wow.
And they knew that. They went into the project well aware of the fact that they were not going to get to see it when it was done. And yet they still contributed, and they still designed and planned and poured their creativity into a project that was just a tremendous undertaking.
Right.
I think, would I be okay with that? I mean, it almost feels like this pregnancy that never delivers, right? And I think we're so focused on the end goal, but the design, all of that, I think, would I be okay with that? And raising our children is very much that. We're not guaranteed. Nowhere in Scripture does it guarantee that we will get to see the fruit of our parenting. Right. We don't get that. But we trust that God is at work in the hearts and minds and lives. That's a really big one. So the message is to get over ourselves. Right. Okay.
But you still have to cook dinner, so.
Oh, man.
Sorry.
The laundry won't do itself.
You still get to fix dinner for your people, right?
Yes. I love that. I feel like we have covered so much. Truly, every topic that we've discussed could be a standalone episode. I think I already mentioned that. But of course, we have to stop somewhere, at least while the recording is happening. We are going to wrap up our episode today with a few action steps as usual, and I'm going to go through these quickly. Number 1, have a discussion with your family about privacy and why it's important, and does it matter, and what the risk is if you forfeit your privacy, especially as a teen, when you're maybe not making great decisions all the time, and but the internet is forever, and you're going to end up needing employment at some point, and there's a digital record of your formative years. Discuss privacy and why that is really a commodity anymore.
And I think including in that what they are comfortable with you sharing pictures and things of their life too.
Yes, that is a good add-on there. Number 2, if you have children who are about 7 or 8, maybe go ahead and get a refresher for yourself on the changes that happen during puberty. If you have kids that are 11 and up, definitely make sure that you are aware of the things to be looking out for and explaining to them, and commit to ongoing conversations, open-ended conversations, and commit to finding answers together, and just really recommitting yourself to your children as a resource, as a trusted resource. And then finally, touching back on the faith conversation, just pray. Pray for your child's faith journey, and ask the Lord to show you the places where you're kind of grasping instead of releasing their testimony. And ask God to just remove any spirit of fear that you may have in terms of their salvation, or their future, or their relationship with God, or their ability to trust Him, or participate in, if your family attends a church, what that looks like. So to recap, we've got have a family discussion on privacy. If you have kids in the age range where puberty is on the horizon, or if you're already there, go ahead and get yourself refreshed on what that looks like and what you need to know and do. And then pray for your child's faith journey. Big things. Families do really, really hard work behind closed doors. And when things are just chaotic, we feel unseen and isolated sometimes. But you need to know that you are not alone, and that it is normal for this to be really hard. And we will be praying for you. And we just thank you for finding a moment.